We're all screwed up here.
Sorry?
Say we're all screwed up here.
Why?
We've got committee meetings, then we've got a special business meeting. But we don't have the
Hey, Mikey. I'm not even going to
have the formalities.
Oh, for coming back?
Yeah. Or even to go into, because we got to start off as a business meeting. Take
That's
a
okay.
roll,
It's no
all that kind of
pressure
stuff.
thing. Man, I'll tell you.
So
It's really interesting.
Lori was going to go get me something.
Okay.
Right.
So we got to start off as a business meeting and adjourn to
Where?
committee meetings.
I couldn't open anything today.
Yeah.
Jen.
Well, it must have
I
been,
can't, anything Lori sends me, I get it, but I can't open it up to follow
might
it.
have seen this much of her head sticking up. I don't know.
Hey,
Whoa!
what's going on?
I didn't know we had such distinguished guests here tonight.
I know it.
Well, I'm here every week. I mean, what are you talking about?
Commissioner Howe, my apologies for not recognizing that.
Apology accepted. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. I really am. 7:01, Mr. President.
Yeah, I know.
Right on time.
He's texting. Let him go.
Wow. Okay. They already called out Virginia.
I'd like to welcome everyone to Kent County Levy Court,
Rest.
Tuesday, November 2nd. This is a combined business meeting and committee meeting. Before we go into open the business meeting, I'll turn it over to the county administrator to explain to those folks that are joining us by phone or by computer how that process works.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, this meeting is being conducted in 555 Bay Road, the county complex in Dover, and we are making it available to guests via WebEx. And for those who may be joining us via WebEx, and I understand we do have some guests this evening on the internet, at the appropriate time during the meeting, there will be opportunity for public comment. We are in a combined session, which is a committee meeting, and at the end of each committee, there's an opportunity for public comment. And then we also will be adjourning into a business meeting, and there's an opportunity for public comment at the end of that meeting as well. And we also have one guest who will be joining us to discuss one of the items under committee via WebEx. And for those folks, instructions are like this. If you're on a mobile phone, *3 will raise an electronic hand. *6 mutes and unmutes your device. And if you're on a computer, there's an icon with a raised hand symbol, and if you would pick that at the appropriate time, that'll let our operator know that you're interested in addressing Levy Court on the matter that's before them, and we will enter you into the room. And we ask that before you state any comments, you proceed your comments with indicating your name and address for the record. So we aren't under public hearing tonight, so there will be no need to swear any individuals in. And I believe that's correct, Counselor? Thank you. Also remind everyone that we are operating under the Levy Court adopted rules for business meetings as well as the Mason's Rules of Order. Mr. President, back to you.
Thank you. How are we going to start this evening? Are we going to start as a committee meeting, or are we going to do the formalities of the business meeting first?
Well, I thought we were starting as a business meeting, but I see how the agenda is arranged.
Why don't we start like a business meeting and then adjourn to committee meetings?
Right.
And then come back to business meeting. It'd be easier to do that and get the formalities out of the way first.
Agreed.
All right. Oops, turn myself off here. This time we'll come to order, and I'll ask Commissioner Howe for the invocation, Commissioner Buxton for a pledge of allegiance, and Commissioner Sweeney for a moment of silence for our troops and first responders. All rise, please.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us here safely tonight. We just pray that all of our proceedings will be pleasing to you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence to honor our military, law enforcement, firefighters, paramedics, and other first responders who have lost their lives in the line of duty, protecting and fighting for our freedoms. We also honor all first responders and medical staff who have succumbed to COVID-19 virus complications contracted throughout close interaction with infected patients, losing their lives caring for others. As of today, more than 748,000 Americans nationwide, 2,091 in Delaware, and 445 in Kent County have lost their lives. Please remember these individuals who died in the line of duty and keep their families in your thoughts and prayers. Police Officer Stephen Evans, the Burns Police Department in Kansas. Police Officer Tyler Timmons, Pontoon Beach Police Department, Illinois. Staff Sergeant Jesse Sherrill, New Hampshire State Police. Volunteer Firefighter Larry Wyatt, Joe's Fire Department in Yuma, Colorado. Also, please keep Delaware Fire Policeman Ken Tull from the Seaford Volunteer Fire Department in your thoughts and prayers. Mr. Tull is in serious condition at Christiana Care after he was struck by a vehicle while directing traffic at a fire incident. Thank you. Please be seated.
Mr. Tanaka, can we have a roll call, please, to determine quorum?
Mr. Angel?
Present.
Mr. Buxton?
Present.
Mr. Hall? Absent?
I believe Mr. Hall. Turn myself off again. Mr. Hall is joining us via phone. So
Mr. Hall?
call his name again. I believe he'll answer you.
Mr. Hall?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Present.
Mr. Howell?
Here.
Mrs. Maston?
Present.
Mr. Sweeney?
Here.
Mr. Pepper?
Here.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 present.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. Everyone is here. Need a motion to adopt the agenda for the evening.
So moved. Second. You owe me.
That's unity for you.
Motion by Commissioner Sweeney, second by Commissioner Angel. Can we have a roll call, please, on the agenda?
Mr. Angel?
Yes.
Mr. Buxton? Yes. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mrs. Maston?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
Thank you. This evening's agenda has been adopted. At this time, we're going to go to committee meetings. And the first item on the agenda is Finance Committee. Mrs. Maston.
Thank you, Mr. President. The first item is a resolution approving in accordance with Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended, and in accordance with Section 660304, 11A of the Wisconsin statutes, the issuance of bonds to finance projects for Bay Health Medical Center Incorporated. And I believe we have Emily Ninan and Ballard Spar on the line to direct us.
Emily, if you're ready to address Levy Court.
I am. Can you hear me?
We can.
We hear you.
Okay. Well, good evening, and I'm sorry I couldn't be there with you in person. Before you today is a resolution which Bay Health Medical Center is asking Levy Court to adopt. This is not for bonds that the county will be issuing. So I'm just going to give you a little bit background because it's a little bit different, the financing, than you may be used to seeing. So Bay Health has projects both in Kent County and Suffolk County. And so they are going to an issuer who actually is out of state, who has the authority to issue bonds for all of the project, one financing, as opposed to having to do separate financing for each jurisdiction. So the federal tax code requires that there be local public hearings held in connection with those bonds that are being issued, so that people who are in proximity to the actual projects in Kent and Sussex will have an opportunity to comment if they have something that they want to share about the project. The Kent County project, the large part of that is, so the total financing will be over $100 million. But the Kent County project, the large piece, is a $50 million project that is really aimed at privatizing the patient room. So all the shared rooms will become private rooms. Again, this is a tax code requirement that the hearing be held, which we've scheduled for next Tuesday, and then that there be a resolution of the legislative body, which is Levy Court, just saying, that it was held and that, they are fine with the project that has been proposed. Just for your information, Sussex County is holding the same hearing also next Tuesday. That happens to be their meeting date as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions. There's no bonds being issued by the county. There's no credit being asked for to use by the county. So there's really no financial obligation of any sort here. I'll stop there and take any questions.
Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Sweeney?
Thanks, Commissioner Maston. Hi, Emily. So the one question I have, and I know there's, even with the bonds that we've done before, that there is no commitment by the county. Can we ever get to a point where there's too many and we shouldn't do this?
No, so for nonprofit conduit borrowers such as hospitals and schools, there's no limit on the amount of bonds you can issue. It doesn't affect your credit, so it doesn't really matter how much you issue. On other private activity bonds, like if you were doing something for manufacturing or affordable housing, there are limits. It's called a volume cap that the federal government sets, and each state is allocated a certain amount of dollars where you can issue up to, and then you as the county, I believe by executive order of the governor, he has allocated an amount, to you, to Sussex, to Newcastle, and economic development authority. Like each of the issuers in the state gets some portion of that. But typically, we never hit that ceiling in Delaware. There aren't enough private activity projects. But if your question is whether it would ever affect you negatively to issue these bonds, it should have no effect on your rating.
Okay.
It doesn't use your credit.
Thank you.
Commissioner Buxton?
Hi, Emily. And I'll be brief. I'm hopefully asking a question I already know the answer to. And if not, okay. This is strictly procedural. As you mentioned, we're a conduit, a pass-through, or something that the legislation requires them to go through us in order to potentially obtain the funding. That's all we kind of are as a legislative body. Is that correct?
Yeah, so in this case of Bay Health, you're not even the conduit issuer because you won't be issuing the bonds. You're just accommodating their request so that they could fulfill the public hearing requirement on a local level.
And so somebody referenced Levy Court of the county government at a public hearing that you mentioned, and our role in deciding whether or not this project's warranted. The pure answer is we really don't have that role to play in whether or not the project is warranted.
Really,
Go ahead.
No, you're not. I don't think you're doing a credit analysis or deciding whether or not it should move. I mean, if you have some objection to it, you obviously could make that known. But the authority in Wisconsin that's issuing the project, I mean the bonds itself, has already approved the project.
Fair enough.
So their authorizations are already completed, just for your information. That was done last week. So we're just this is just to facilitate the local public hearings that are required.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner
And,
comments?
yeah.
No other commissioner comments? Any public comments? Anyone on the line have any comments?
You have any other guests on the WebEx who wish to address Levy Court on this matter? Please raise your electronic hand. *3 on your mobile device will do that, as well as the icon on your computer.
I see no hands raised for public comment.
Thank you, Mark.
Could I show of hands to move this to the business meeting? Mr. Hall, you concur?
Yes.
Okay, 7-0. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Administration Committee, Mr. Angel, Chair, turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Angel. This evening, we're here to present to you, and you all received in your weekly packet, a proposed ordinance for redistricting of the Levy Court election districts. The ordinance consists of a two-page ordinance itself, which would adopt a legal description for each of the new districts as have been proposed by the Redistricting Commission, along with a map, which is indicated by Exhibit B in your packet, that shows in graphic form those boundaries. Before I go too far, what I'd like to do is introduce to you all, and I know you all know these folks, but for the public's benefit, our Redistricting Commission was led by the people that are sitting in the front row here. Each one of them were appointed as an independent citizen member of this Redistricting Commission as required by state law to look at the 2020 census information and to reapportion the county election districts accordingly. And so if you just want to raise your hand when we get Mike Devers, Glenn Gavry. Glenn's also the mayor of Little Creek. Thanks for being with us. Matt Booker, Jackie McCabe, Temple Carter, who chaired the commission, Margaret Moore, Dean, and Paul Fleming. This was your 2021 Redistricting Commission, and also we have Mike Ward in the audience with us. Mike, everyone knows Mike. Mike retired a few years ago from the county, but he was gracious enough to come back and help us with this project, being a longtime GIS expert, and now he's been employed for several years now with the Dover Kent MPO, doing similar work, 3 years, and he was a great help with this project as well. What I'd like to do, and the commission, if some of you want to, you're welcome to stay right where you are, but if you want to join us at the table, feel free to do that. What I thought I'd do is kind of go through a little bit of a PowerPoint that just kind of describe what we went through, and then open it up for discussions and really have the commission address any questions that Levy Court may have with regard to how the boundaries were proposed. So, Mark, you got a clicker? Thanks. Okay, so the commission was established by Levy Court as required by state law, and we're going to basically brief on the legal basis behind this, the process we went through, and the law that we are governed by, referenced here, Title IX, Chapter 41, sets forth the parameters. And whenever the U.S. Census Bureau releases new numbers every 10 years, we're obligated within 60 days to appoint a commission, and then they have certain tasks and time limitations. This particular year, the census information came out significantly later than normal. It usually is out in March of the year after the census. This year it came out in August. So in preparation for that, Levy Court appointed this commission on July 27th, and the commission, upon appointment, according to the law, has 90 days to deliver a recommendation back to Levy Court, which would have been 2 weeks ago. the 26th, or 1 week ago, I'm sorry. So, and we accomplished that mission last week on the 26th of October. Levy Court introduced the ordinance, and so now tonight we're going to explain to you the recommendations. And the state law requires that we look at the 6 Levy Court districts and readjust the population so that we're within a tolerance of 15% plus or minus of a target number, the equalization number for the new population. And we're to deliver to you an ordinance with an Exhibit A, which describes the boundaries in narrative form, and an Exhibit B, which is a map. And that's the materials that you received in your packet. So the state law also provides that after Levy Court adopts the map and the boundaries, that if once we send this information off to the elections department, if they find areas where we need to adjust to avoid splitting polling places, they will let us know, and we may need to come back and make some tweaks. We had to do that last time in 2011. Levy Court adopted the map, and then a few months later, the Bureau of Elections came back and said we had a couple of areas, and we made those adjustments. Fairly simple, and it's routine. So just for comparison, on the screen now is the map from 2001, right after the 2000 census, and the map from 2011, right after the 2010 census. The reason I have this on the screen is just for purposes of illustration to see what the exercise is about. You'll see on the left side, the 2nd district, for example, was fairly tightly aligned with basically the limits of the city of Dover. But with the growth in 2000, from 2000 to 2010, we saw the 1st district primarily grew a lot, and so we had to adjust that boundary in a northerly direction. And you'll see the 6th district got more elongated. It went further north. It went further south, and the 2nd district had to grow in a westerly direction. And that's kind of the exercise we went through again this time after we look at the population numbers. So the new Kent County population, based on the 2020 census, is 181,850 people. That's how many were determined to live here. There's a few other years listed there, 2000 and 2010. So between 2010 and 2020, we added just under 20,000 additional people. And so our new equalization target, we take that 181,851 and divide it by 6, it's 30,308.5. And so our objective, the Commission's objective, was to establish a population for each of the districts which would be within plus or minus 15% of that number. And the high and low numbers are on the screen there at the bottom for your reference. So where do we get the numbers? The U.S. Census Bureau publishes the numbers. They came out, as I mentioned, late this time, about 6 months later than normal. August 12th, they were released. And we use what's called the census block numbers. Census tracts consist of hundreds of census blocks, and census blocks are areas of essentially uninterrupted geography where population data is recorded. So they're limited by physical features such as roads and streams and water courses and that sort of thing, and they're contiguous. So they're the building blocks for the redistricting project. So we have the census blocks. From there, we plug it into the Geographic Information System software, and from there we can produce maps. And that's the great work that Mike Ward did for us. And just taking the boundaries as they exist today and dividing up the new population without changing the boundaries, this is what it would look like. The 1st district led the county again in growth, just under 35,000 now. So it's above the target number. And you'll look down through there and you'll see the 6th district didn't grow a whole lot. It's below the target number. And then the rest of them are in between. That was the high and the low. But the two districts that were above the target were the 1st and the 4th districts, and those are the districts that we've been seeing the growth in. And so that's the task before us. Now, you might look at this and say, well, all those are within 15% plus or minus. We didn't really need to do anything. We could walk away right now. But this map needs to last for 10 years. And this data is already a year old, year and a half old, because it was done in April of 2020. And so the commission and the staff felt it's important that we still deliver to you a recommendation so that we have a map that 10 years from now is still within that 15% tolerance. So we're not going to look in detail at this moment at every single district, but just by way of example, there's the boundary as it exists today with 34,823 people residing within the 1st district. And we looked at each one of the districts. And just for illustration purposes, the data underlying that and how we determine what the population is in that district is the block data information. And so we get population numbers for each of these little cells that you see on the map. And when you get into the places like the town of Smyrna, where it's pretty dense and the blocks are small, you have to enlarge the map to actually get the data. But the GIS system tabulates all of that for us. And when we move a boundary, it retabulates the population. And so we did this for each of the districts. Also, when we look at like the 1st district, for example, the 1st district borders the 3rd, the 2nd, and the 6th district. So if we're going to reduce the size of the 1st district, that means that some of the population in the 1st district shifts over to one of those 3 other districts that adjoin it, and so on down through the county. So that's the high district. If we look at, say, the 2nd district, which last time extended all the way out to Hartley in 2011, and it's below the target number, we're going to look at where can we take from the 1st district and give to the 2nd district to help reduce the 1st and increase the 2nd. And that's pretty much the exercise. So we look at those numbers, and then the commission discussed areas where the boundary could move. Okay, so we focused on those 2 districts that were the high districts and trying to bring them down. And we looked at a variety of scenarios. The first scenario that the commission developed was pretty much, almost an equal partitioning of the county, and we were within less than 1% of the target number for every district. But after we looked at that, and commissioners, feel free to enter the discussion, there was some interest in accommodating for those growth area districts like the 1st and the 4th and create some additional capacity for them to grow rather than try to hit right at 30,309, provide them a little bit more capacity to absorb growth. So ultimately, this is what was proposed, or is proposed, and you can see that we've brought the percentages down considerably, but you'll look at the 1st and the 4th, and both the 1st and the 4th now are slightly below the target number. And the other districts are at or just above the target number. And that's kind of, in looking at the map and where areas are growing, again, we felt we would accommodate the 1st and the 4th mostly with some additional room for capacity. And just to put the 2 maps side by side, the left side is the current map as it exists, and you can see the differences between the left side and the right side. The 6th district, Commissioner Howe's district, which is the largely rural district, under this proposal would extend from northern Kent County, or all the way up to Newcastle County and all the way down, and it pretty much picked up that western portion of the 1st district to bring it up above 30,000. And the 2nd district, you'll see now it extends close all the way up to Kenton. Didn't take in the town of Kenton. Kenton is still with the 1st district, but it goes right up to the border of Kenton. of the 3rd District. Commissioner Angel, your district picks up all of Cheswold now, and you can see where the blue area extends a little further to the west than it currently does. And then the other significant area of change, you guys are looking at this map, if you focus right in here, between the 4th and the 5th District, you'll see portions of this that's currently in the 4th shifted over to the 5th, right in here. And that is in the Chestnut Run area of the county.
Where it is, yes.
Okay, so those were essentially the major changes.
I can't wait to see Lyndon's face when I climb out.
And this is the Exhibit B, and Mike Ward produced a version of it that has a nice table. You can't really read it there, but I have copies here that we'll give out, and it'll be the one that we will have on display for Levy Court to vote on. But it has the actual data on it, the population information, proposed, and the percentage above or below target.
Mike, we're going to get this electronically too, right?
Yes, and this time I'm going to ask Mike Ward if he wants to show you
Thank you.
the call it the live base map that he has been working from. And
do you want to reflect what we utilized in the meetings first, or do you just want me to go into the story map?
I'm not sure what you mean, what we utilize in the meeting. Yes, the interactive
That one.
map. There you go. Yes.
What we did here, since it was so difficult to read the small maps on paper, and even with magnifying glass, would not allow you to have done it. Can you scroll in, please, magnifying it? Yeah. You can see as you go in, and you can go all the way down to street level, and those numbers will still appear, which gave the commission a little bit better idea and understanding of what numbers are where and what block, and hopefully it made it a little easier on them. I tried to make it as easy as possible. This is what's called a interactive legend, so you can click off 1 or 2 or 3 and just leave the ones that are adjacent. Click off 3. So now you go back, and you can leave that so it doesn't distract you from doing the adjacent. And you can do that all throughout. Unfortunately, with this system that we've got here, they had to use a calculator as opposed to the GIS aspect of it. Because again, we didn't want to make it too difficult for trying to understand and trying to manipulate the data as it is for them, and then trying to understand it and getting phone calls. How do I do this? And I try to explain it the best that I can, and cause more confusion. So this is the one that we utilized, and I think hopefully did it make it any easier for you guys?
Yep, absolutely. Simple, very simple.
Okay. Can you click on the other link, please? Now, you asked about doing it electronically. Go ahead and scroll down, please. This is just a summary of what's there, of where we move the lines. This is something I just threw together this afternoon to give you an idea, and you can click on that map and it'll expand. You can interact with it, and yes, you can go down to street level, and we have a street map we can put behind it, and you get the pop-ups as well. So yeah, to answer to your question, it can be done electronically, and if you want me to do something like this, or you have staff here that could do it as well.
So that's all web interface.
Yeah. And it's open to the public. You can, all it is, only thing I have to do is to put on whatever you want me to put on. I mean, it actually could be like the handout you give, and I could do, it's just called what we call a story map. It gives you just some background of each of the districts and so forth. I put the red lines on there to indicate where the current districts are as they have been adopted and where the changes were made in respect to the other districts. Like, for instance, District 3 took some out of District 1. District 6 took about 3,000 out of District 1. And District 2, I think, took about 400 out of District 1 to bring that down to comply with what we were looking for, being in the percentile range. And again, down with the 4th district, at the bottom right-hand corner, you can see that the Chestnut Ridge and a small area to the north, that was the only change in District 4 to District 5. And there was no changes down below, any further south of that, because District 6 and District 4 stayed with the current boundaries. So, I mean, if you want something like that, I mean, I'm more than happy to do it.
Well, I like that because I'm interested in that stuff, but I was just more interested in the presentation Mike had. It would be fine.
Oh, okay.
It had the side-by-side maps, and but
that could be done too.
That's cool stuff.
That could be done. All I had to do is take the images. Actually, I could actually do a swipe screen. In other words, you can swipe one over top the other and actually see where the changes are made.
We could reject everything they did and let me do this. I'll figure it out.
Actually, and I think Mike will share my sentiments, but I think this group that we work with, the commission here, I think is probably one of the best that we've, if not the best, we've worked with over the years.
That was because of the work that you did. It made us look
No. You guys had to make the decision of where to put the lines and then deal with it.
Okay.
So now,
Mutual aberration.
only thing you were the conductor, I was the instrument.
Yeah.
The commission, the first meeting was on the 14th, I think, of September. We met 5 times on consecutive weeks, every Tuesday, before Levy Court. We met at 5:30. They were a very efficient group. They showed up on time, got to work, and we were able to get enough information to come back next week with a little more, and we got it done on a very tight timeline. That because normally we have some luxury of time when the census numbers come out in March usually. We have plenty of time before we have to, when the General Assembly kind of passed their resolution on June 30th saying that they wanted redistricting done by November 8th, they were mainly talking about the senatorial and representative districts, and I guess they accomplished that yesterday. But we spoke with the Department of Elections, and they wanted us to try to follow that schedule as well so that all this can get coordinated, and people are starting to get ready to announce their candidacies and things like that. They need to know where their boundaries are. So it's really important that we got it done a year ahead of the election. So
I think by the second, we were pretty much done. Second meeting.
Yeah, the actual map, yeah, right.
And then there was only tweets here and there.
Sure, Hal?
Yeah, I had a specific question for you. On the first map, it isn't quite clear. I think the second map you gave us, I'm curious about Hartley. Is it still in the 6th? I can't tell from the lines.
Can you zoom in?
Right there.
There you go. Zoom in on it. Can you zoom in? There you
Yeah,
go.
Hartley itself is still in the 6th.
Okay, well, it looks like, but it's hard to say because...
That's one of, you're actually right. I mean, it's difficult to see, and that's one thing. If you want to put it up electronically by scrolling in, you can actually determine what district it's in.
Okay, I kind of figured it was. I just wanted to ask our expert while he was here.
I'm not, I'm just me. I just do what's asked of me.
Is it possible to get a map once this is ratified by us for the streets? So we know which streets that have been added or taken away from us? Like this? On the map? The new map?
If you ask your GIS staff,
Okay, GIS? Okay, and how soon after this does the Department of Elections get this?
I'll have to let Michael.
Once Levy Court acts on and passes the ordinance, we will forward that on as an approved ordinance and the maps and the descriptions. And hopefully, I imagine they're going to be looking at it pretty quickly because of the timing and everything. And if there are any areas we need to adjust, they'll let us know. Their main interest is that we don't split polling places, require additional polling places to be stood up.
Right.
And we don't have that information where the polling places are, do we?
No.
They'll let us know, though, like last
Yeah,
time.
they will. They definitely will.
But if you want something put up electronically, I'll be happy to do it.
Any other, Commissioner Sweeney?
Yeah, just in all seriousness, first, can the seven of you all concur with this, right? Can you imagine sitting here 30 years ago and trying to figure this all out without the help of computers?
It could have been done.
It takes longer.
They did it. I guarantee you they did it, but it took a lot longer than what you guys experienced. So I'm sure from the rest of us, but from me, I appreciate everything you guys have done. It's a lot of work in a very short amount of time. It was already compressed right at the very beginning without any other pressures that were put on you. So thank you for your hard work to get this done. You as well, Mike and Mike.
Yeah, thanks to everyone for a job well done.
And it was truly great to have an opportunity to work with Mike like we did in the past, side by side, went right through marched right through.
So can we put you down for 10 years from now?
See, I told
I
you.
might be moved by then. I don't know, but it was great, and it's good to see you commissioners, and I get to meet the newest commissioner, Ms. Maston, who took Mr. Banter's place. So that, I mean, it's just kind of different sitting here and not seeing Mr. Banter. But anyway, it was fun, and I thank you all for having the confidence in myself and allowing me to do this for you.
Mr. Buxton?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, personally, thank you all. It's good seeing you again, good seeing all of you. These are two silly questions. One, we might have to get in the budget some mileage costs for Commissioner Howe. I'm just trying to help you out.
I've already budgeted for a new pair of jogging shoes, so.
I mean, there is just, wow.
I have no sympathy for him whatsoever.
There you go.
Marcus president.
There you go. We've been relying on you to do that, so I guess. But, I mean, the thing about it is, they talk about, the politics of it and whatever. I don't think there was really that. I mean, I don't think I know if anybody was involved. I do know I was like, hey, I hope I hang on to, I loved Farmington. I lost him 10 years ago. And that was, it is what it is. But
It was Peterman's boot.
Peterman's what?
Boot.
Boot. Oh, yeah, that's what you called it? Yeah.
Well, it was a little
Unfortunately,
inside joke.
I get it now. I enjoyed Farmington. When we lost Farmington, the only thing I remember saying is, man, I don't want to lose Houston. That's just because.
I don't think you have any problems or worries about that. You're almost in the middle.
But I guess what I'm saying is, it was a clean slate. It was a clean process. It was done for the intent of making a good map, a legit map. So I appreciate that. That's all. Anyway, I wonder what does Sussex look like? Why do I ask that? They've only got 5. Mm-hmm. So do they have, instead of 30, they have 38 in each one? And do they have districts the size of Glen, some of them?
Their map is going to look The small districts geographically along the east side and large along the west side. Yeah. They have 5 districts. They did add about over 40,000 additional people since 2010. So they're standing at about 245,000 right now. So
Do they eventually, are they enabled to petition for an extra seat?
it would take an act of the legislature, but yeah, they presumably could do that.
Almost have to
I'm
be
talking about
two,
them,
wouldn't
not
it?
us.
Yeah, they'd have to have 2.
Two.
Yeah, they would, sure.
Yeah. Not sure they will do that, but they could.
All right, held you up enough. Thank you.
Yeah. Their districts, their target number obviously is going to be a lot bigger than ours. It's probably closer to 50,000 per district.
So if you don't mind,
Go ahead.
is there a number that they look at and say, okay, at this point, you guys are representing 70,000 people each? I know there's districts in the states that a commissioner represents millions of people, but this is Delaware. Is there a number that they look at?
There isn't that I'm aware of. There's nothing in the law that says a county election district can't exceed X number of people.
If I may interject, if I'm not mistaken, since I work over the MPO part-time, my boss over there, as you probably all know, was Reed McMillan. Reed worked for Newcastle County, and it was like 13 commissioners that they had, if not more, 13 or 15, somewhere around that number.
Boy, that would be tough.
It'd be like a classroom, wouldn't it?
At parties, invite all of them.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if our chair or any other members of the commission want to say anything, but we asked them to come tonight and be available to answer any questions on the methodology or the thought process. Doesn't appear that there are too many questions along those lines, but Temple led the group. Have anything to say?
I think it went very, very well considering the time. Thankfully, Mike found the key to the giant spreadsheet you get from the business. Figure out which column you're really supposed to use.
And that's thankful to an email that I received from Michael that I started going through it. I mean, there was a number of columns. I don't even want to even try to expand on how many there was, but I needed to find out which one was the actual just plain population of the blocks. But anyway, we found it, we got it, we did it. The only pain in the butt that was to do it, or not to do it, but I mean, as it was in every single one, is writing the written description. I mean, you get into it so deep, you turn easterly into westerly sometimes. And fortunately, once I got it done, I gave it to Michael, and Michael was kind enough to go through it. The first district was the one that I think had the most red lines you had, but we had put in the road numbers as well as the road names. And Michael was kind enough to do a lot of that because I found a file later that had the road numbers in it. But anyway, it all came to fruition. It's done. And let's hope it's get it adopted, and you guys can know where you put your signs.
Anybody else?
Just one.
Mr. President?
Well, Temple, I really am glad you didn't give me any part of Newcastle County. And I'm glad my lines didn't change at all. But seriously, though, I appreciate every one of you for the time you put in and for all the thought you put into it. We really appreciate it. I mean, you made life easy for us. Not so easy for Commissioner Howe, but thank you very much. We really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you too, on my behalf too, for maybe being the chair of this, because it shows that us commissioners pick the right people to do this, and we work with our administrator to make a perfect bond to make this go as smoothly as it did. So on behalf of, I don't think Mike ever gets thanked enough, so thank you too, Mike, to make sure that these guys showed up and they did what you had to do, and you got him here too, so that's a perfect marriage.
Well, the thing about it is, Michael and I have always worked well together. And we just have, we worked together since, 1986 when you were first hired at the county. So, we have about 30 years together. Yeah, so, and he doesn't hesitate to pick up the phone and ask me to make a change. And sometimes you have to have a second set of eyes because you look at it so long you can't find mistakes. And you have a fresh pair of eyes to look at it that jumps out at you. And these guys were great. I mean, seriously, they were great. So I think it was a good team. It was a team effort.
I don't know whether we'll all be on the committee at the next census. We're just hoping to be here.
10 years from now. Paul's already signed up.
If he fits inside a softball tournament.
And Paul is a veteran because he helped us last time, 10 years ago. Paul served on the commission as well, and so he's a veteran at it now. So we'll see you in 10 years, Paul.
Well, Mr. Fleming also was my 8th grade counselor at Dover Air Force Base, and we served together on the school board. So I know how well he does, and he comes up with these certain terms that just make it pop. So are you still doing that, Paul? The term that you gave us a term one time that made a whole big giant sentence out of one word. It was Japanese. School board meeting. Remember that?
No.
Okay. Okay. But it got us thinking.
He'll be looking for it.
There you go. Can you bring it back to us next 10 years?
I would like you guys to look at the new law, county or state. Everyone over 50 wears a name tag.
Thanks, Paul. Anybody else? Well, we thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. Do we have to move this forward to a business meeting?
This will be moved to the business meeting, which is slated for 2 weeks from now. It was originally going to be held this coming Tuesday, but we learned today that the clerk's office didn't get the ad in the paper in time, so it'll be done in 2 weeks. Okay.
So move it to the business in 2 weeks?
Yes.
Show of hands. Mr. Hall, you on board? Mr. Hall? That's 6 in favor. We'll move it forth. 1 absent.
Yes.
Okay, there he is. All right, thank you. 7 in favor. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Ladies.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys. Lady.
Thanks for coming out tonight, folks.
Michael, please let me know if you need anything else.
All right. We'll do, Mike. Thanks.
Thanks, Temple.
See you Thursday.
Good job, man. Appreciate it.
New billing, collections analyst position and description. Mr. Coela.
Thank you, Commissioner Angel. So Commissioners, in light of a recent decision to move to the Munis Enterprise Solution and other announcements, it's become important, imperative that a new position be added to the Finance Department to help manage that, and also to have someone who is responsible for the position for billing and collections. The finance director has a concept of creating these areas of responsibility, and over the next few months, obviously, there'll need to be some transfer of knowledge so that not only this position, but the other account analysts and the assistant director can be able to manage that Munis transition over the next few years. So we're proposing to add a new account analyst position. And while they won't necessarily be fully responsible for systems administration, they would have a role like the other account analysts and the assistant director, and ultimately the director position. If you, this would start, it would start in the next month or so if this is approved, and so at a half year, it'd be about $52,000. Back to you, Mr.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Commissioner Maston?
Mr. Quayle, is this something we would look at either going outside the county to staff or perhaps look internally as a career move?
Right, so we would post it like normal, and so it could very well be filled by an internal candidate, and if there's not a satisfactory candidate there, then it would go outside.
Mr. Buxton?
Typically in these situations, I ask 3 people, but since one of the 3 is bringing it forward, Mr. Quayle and Mr. Pettit-Damage, you guys both concur?
Yes, I met with Susan Durham and a week or 2 ago about this project or the position, and there's some proposed realignment in the department to consolidate the billing function, and this would position an individual to supervise that, and it's also looking a little longer range. With some retirements that are coming in the coming years, and eventually we'll see a few positions consolidated as retirements occur. Susan's in the audience. Susan, if you have anything additional to add to that, does that capture it correctly? Yes. Thank you.
Yes, and certainly in my conversations with Susan, I think there's a demonstrated need.
There you go.
And this position is above and beyond from the new positions that we already been through, correct?
Right, this would be in addition to, so this would be a mid-year, about mid-year addition to the finance department.
Any further questions? Move it forward to the business meeting. Mr. Hall? Mr. Hall?
Bueller.
I agree.
Okay, 7 moving forward. Thank you.
A consent agenda? Consent agenda, okay?
Consent?
Okay,
I
thank you.
agree.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Don't go too far, Alan.
Hey, Mr. Pettit-Damage, update on our winter retreat priorities. Progress.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mark, if you wouldn't mind queuing up that presentation. Yeah, a few weeks, maybe a month ago, Commissioner Maston had asked about the status of our winter retreat priorities, and I think it was a very important thing to revisit and look at what we agreed to back in February and March when we came out of the retreat. We looked at a host of topics that the commissioners had put forward, and then after the retreat, we had you go through a prioritization process. I just have a couple slides I just want to show you just to remind you what we did back then. So the retreat was on February 20th, and when we developed the retreat, prior to the retreat, we asked commissioners to submit specific topics that you wanted to explore further in the retreat. And so this list here, this table, lists 15 different topics that were produced. And we hit on each one of these throughout the retreat time that we met on that winter day. And then after that, we came back and asked commissioners to each individually take this sheet and prioritize those or rank them in terms of their importance. And for FY22, which is the current year, FY23 and FY24. And from that, we were able to develop a short list of priorities for the current year. And we'll do the same thing in future retreats. So when we got your results, we first plugged them into a spreadsheet and then developed this graphic. And the various colors represent how many votes that that particular topic received. And you'll see the ones that go to the far right of the screen are the ones that receive more votes. And then the colors actually represent whether if it was a blue, it means that it was voted for as the #1 priority. You see that lower topic, the facilities outbuilding, received a total of 4 #1 votes. So it really was a leader. And then from there, we took this information and we created a weighting of the voting just to check to make sure how it scored, because you know, a #1 vote versus a #5 vote, there's different weights. So if someone, a majority of you voted, gave a #1 priority, that got more weight than a #5 priority. And so from that, we were able to identify those spikes that stood out. And you'll see the facilities outbuilding, paramedics, the IT enterprise solution stood out, long-range wastewater master plan stood out, reassessment project stood out. So from that, we basically listed how many points each of these topics received, and these are the points that came out of that exercise. So the facilities outbuilding received a total of 25 points. That was the #1 project that you all identified, the IT solutions and paramedics, so on down. We had a tie for the number 5 project, long-range master plan, and the implementation of the compensation study that was completed the year before. And so I've asked each of the directors that have responsibility over these topics to prepare a little brief, and you'll receive that in your packet. And each one of them, I think, are here tonight if there are any questions. You know, some of these are probably fairly evident because they're relatively fresh. We, for example, are in the closing stages of signing a contract with Tyler Technologies on the enterprise IT solution. Kim Crouch is here. The reassessment project's already underway. We've also working with Tyler Technologies on that, and that started last month, and Susan's leading that project. Colin's here, along with John Tinger from the public safety, talk about the paramedic proposal. And on that one, you know, we did talk about that at the budget time, and it was decided then that we would hold off this current year on funding that, and I think it'll be coming back again in the proposed budget for FY23. And then the compensation study, Alan Quill is here, so I told him not to go too far, but we just recently began the implementation of that with the new budget. And then Diana provided us with a briefing on the status of the long-range wastewater plan. It has not begun yet. She does indicate that there was an extension granted by the State Department of Natural Resources on a grant, a planning grant, through December 17th, so she'll be working on a request for qualifications that'll be coming out for consulting services for that project. Not sure how you'd like to proceed at this time. If you want to have any questions for Sam, he can come on down and
Come on down, Sam, be the first one. Yes, Mr. President.
Just to bring some history about item #1, I think one of the reasons that it got to be #1, last year we had a leak, gasoline leak in one of the mowers, and currently the mowers are housed within this building on the shop on the north end of the building, and that gasoline leak required building to be evacuated and fire company to come and everything. So I think that was still fresh in everyone's mind, and I believe that's probably why it became item #1. And read that right into you, Sam.
Thank you, President. I'm honored to walk into that situation and have the opportunity to get this maintenance building built. So, greatly appreciate it. I'm so proud to be part of this team. Just phenomenal. So as written in your packet, the RFP has been written and has been submitted. Mike has reviewed it. I think we're in the second draft of that now. We're ahead of schedule. We're looking at November 10th and the 17th for publication, and this is for the design services portion. So that's phenomenal news. In addition to that, we've had several discussions with the City of Dover. Dawn Melson Williams, Greg Akers, as well as the Fire Marshal's office, try to get on the same page. We had some team meetings, and it looks like we're going to have an administrative permit for this process, which should simplify and speed this thing right up. So happy to report that as well. We reviewed different architectural specifications for roof, for metal, for brick, for fascia, that sort of thing as well. So want to fine-tune those decisions as we go along. So that's kind of where we are at this point. I think we're looking at the beginning of January to have the RFP back, finalized, and a decision made.
Any questions for Sam?
Just,
Mr. President.
What location?
can't keep my finger off that button.
Stay with it.
What location are we looking at? Where are you looking at putting it, right?
We're
now?
looking at across from the loading dock area right there on the field.
Put it like directly across?
Right.
Okay, great, thank you.
One of the things that came up, and Sam, I'll mention it, I wasn't at the meeting, but you told me about it. When he met with the city planning department, they remembered that a couple of years back, there was a proposal to add some parking related to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Park, and that didn't materialize because of the proximity to South Little Creek Road and the configuration of Levy Court Lane. But there may be an opportunity with this building, as an alternate at least, to look at the potential to add some additional parking on that side of the property adjacent to the building, particularly for those folks who go to that venue that may have mobility challenges or need closer parking. So that's something we'll be looking at as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we may actually be able to get we'll at least seek some state assistance for that through the CTF program, because that's who was going to fund it the first time. So maybe we can revisit that issue. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
Nice work.
Cam?
When will that building be done? That building there is going to take 2 years.
Good evening.
Hello, Kim.
Hello. I think you all are pretty much up to speed on the ERP, but I'll just walk through it a little bit. If you remember, we talked about it in the retreat process. We wanted to look for a vendor to replace the county's legacy core business systems. And in April, it was decided to publish an RFI asking vendors for information on their product for ERP systems. And we did receive 4 proposals in mid-June. One was from a vendor called Arctic IT, another was a vendor called Central Square, and we received 2 proposals from Tyler Technologies. Tyler Technologies had the IS World product as well as their Munis product. And so we brought forth the recommendation, which was Tyler Technology for the Munis product to Levy Court. Levy Court decided authorized that in August. And if you recall, Tyler offered 2 pricing options. One was to purchase the product and one was to lease the product, and Levy Court decided to lease the product. So where we are right now is we're working with a vendor called CAI. In one of their meetings, it was a unanimous decision by the commissioners to hire a project manager for this ERP systems. And so we're working with CSI to hire a project manager. CSI is on the state contract. And we received their statement of work. We've talked to them a few times, received their statement of work. The county attorney has reviewed the document and we have sent off those changes. And on Friday last week, I contacted CAI to ask when we would receive the updates. And so I expect to receive that this week. And that statement of work is to have a project manager come in and help us negotiate the contract with Tyler Technologies. And then once we get past the contract phase, we will then have another statement of work with CAI for them to help us with project management of this project and implementation. And that's pretty much where we are.
Any commissioners? Commissioner Buxton.
Is there an end date? Does that even make sense to say?
Well, we haven't signed a contract yet, so until we do that and we have a implementation plan, if that's the end date you're looking for, I'm not sure which end date you're looking for.
Like the end, when it's fully up and running. Like,
Well, I think
an end date for the building. When's the end date for the building?
For the building?
Yes, the one we just talked about.
We just talked about once we get started, probably about a year from now or so.
Year. Okay.
According to Tyler's implementation plan, once we get started with data conversion and implementing the systems, it was about 2 years.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. All right, Colin.
Hey, Colin.
Good, how are you?
Good.
Okay. Good evening, Commissioners.
How are you? Here for moral support.
I'm good. I'm good.
You need a buddy.
No, I don't. I'm doing. He's
here to fill in the blanks.
frisking for you. So I took an opportunity when we were going to discuss the retreat priorities to kind of give the commissioners an overview of where we're at in staffing in general. So I've kind of protracted the memo a little bit, but I'll go through it. So as the commissioners will recall, on May 18th of this year, I briefed you on the status of our personnel and the fact that we were approaching 10 vacancies in our paramedic division, which is virtually a whole work group. While we were pursuing aggressively hiring options from everyone, we used social media resources, we used contacts with other schools, we used contacts with their paramedics who graduated from schools that we had. I mean, we did everything we could. However, that fell short, and we requested, and the commissioners graciously granted us the opportunity to send 3 paramedics to Good Fellowship School in Westchester, PA. We had a narrow window to select those paramedics because their school started in September. I am happy to report, and John, I know, has been in touch with the school on a fairly regular basis, that we've hired 3 highly motivated students, and according to the school, they're doing very well.
Good.
So we hope to have them on the street around next year this time. So that's certainly a good thing for us. We are continually challenged. You know, with normal retirements, normal attrition, we had those events going on. Plus, we have absences from vacation, personnel leave, coverage, FMLA, sick leave, where, people that get injured on the job, they're out for a while. So these are all vacancies that we have to fill with the staff that we're currently short of. And in fact, it was so alarming that I did petition the state Office of EMS through Division of Health and Social Services to allow us to work a single paramedic, much kind of like we do in Frederica, in the event that medic was going to have to work over 24 hours. That's indefensible if anything ever happened after that 24 hours. No one does that anymore. It's unhealthy, and it's not good. So anyway, during our budget, and I might kind of recap this.
What did the state say?
Oh yeah, they allow us to do it.
They allow
Yes,
it.
yes.
Another question might be, you had a class of 3 that's moving through the process. Did we set the system up for the next class? Have we approved that yet, or are we waiting to see the outcome?
Well, my understanding is that this program would continue on.
Yeah, so there's another class.
There will be another class, and we will be back with Levy Court next year. This will be part of our budget. All through the history of time with the paramedic program, we've always been short of paramedics.
Sure.
So this is one way for us to take that pressure valve off. So
I agree.
it is. I mean, maybe the county administrator can. It's my understanding we would continue this program from year to year.
Yes.
The funding wouldn't be necessary until FY23 for the next class.
So I obviously cautious in our approach. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Given the circumstances and the apparent success of the program, you had numerous quality candidates, right? You selected 3 but had multiple.
Yes.
You could use more than 3. I'm not suggesting that we do it on a consistent basis, but would it be wise to cut the timeline in half and add a second class sooner rather than later to fill the need, if you in fact have that significant need?
The school that we're, with Good Fellowship, they run basically September to September for their.
There's no halfway.
Yeah, there's no. On the plus side, I have heard from Delaware Tech that they're, they used to run 2 cohorts at Delaware Tech, and then they dropped that. And of course, we all knew what was going to happen when they dropped it. And of course, now they're back to, thankfully, to 2 cohorts. So that will inject a few more folks into the system. Just to recap, any concerns of quality, of reduced quality for the single medic response, we've not identified any bad outcomes, and we do an audit of all those patients that have a single medic response. So
Great.
it seems to be working out pretty good.
Medics' willingness to do that. It's big.
Yeah, it's been hard on the paramedics. Covering the time and the shortage. I mean, it's hard to articulate, but it's really been difficult. It's that intangible thing that you really can't assign a value to, but yet there's a value to it that's very dear. So, just to move on, the commissioners, of course, they realize we're building a building out in Westover to help with paramedic service out to the western part of Kent County. Our data was starting to trend downwards. The commissioners responded, as you all recall, and that building is in progress right now. And the idea was to move our power unit, which is a 12-hour-a-day unit, to that location when we first opened the building. And then since the need was established for paramedics out there, that was the request for the 5 paramedics, that we can't underserve a section of the county for just half a day. So the additional 5 paramedics would bring that power unit up to a full-time unit, which basically will collapse the power unit. It would no longer be a power unit, it would be a 24-hour unit. And then during the year, it became clear that the challenges with the building were becoming somewhat protracted because of the work that had to be done, some of it rather unusual. And it also became clear that even if we were budgeted for the last fiscal year for the 5 paramedics, we wouldn't be able to hire them. They're just not there. So we abandoned, the booth commissioners abandoned that as a cost for this year, and it'll be in our budget for this next year. We're getting ready to enter. But the obligation for these positions, I listed down there, the 5 positions would be $464,084.99. We continue to pursue Chesapeake College, Delaware Technical Community College, and other jurisdictions. We have 5 candidates right now in the FTO process, field training officer process. At this time, our little current status, though, for the boots on the ground, is we have 47 field paramedic positions and only 38 of them are filled. If our candidates in the process are successful, then we'll have 3 open positions. However, that we usually lose somebody in the process. I'm not suggesting that, but we sometimes have challenges with those students. One of the challenges that we have is that the student FTOs, the student FTEs, full-time equivalents that we have are occupying our actual field positions. So if we had 3 paramedics and we were fully staffed, our full staff includes the 3 students. And I think what would be optimal for us is to create a separate budget for the students so that we can fill our open positions, and we'll have positions for the students because we always do. But right now, if we had an abundance of paramedics that were all top form and we wanted to hire them, we would be short 3 because we're holding 3 FTE positions up in the school. So if we had to make a recommendation, that would be our recommendation, is to create a budget that will allow us to will basically increase our FTEs, but you would be increasing it because we would have those folks in school. We wouldn't be increasing our field staff per se. It would just allow us to hire a full complement of field staff if we have that opportunity while we have students in school in the academy. But yes.
Have you concurred that with us, our administrator and our HR person for that, and probably Susan Durham too for financing?
Well, I think
differently.
I mean, that is a fact that their students are holding full-time equivalence positions.
Okay.
I mean, we do know that, unless
if we're holding them for a student and we need it now for critical need, you'd rather have the critical need, wouldn't you?
Right. Certainly.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's something that I really would throw out to the committee tonight for consideration. Not necessarily for action tonight, but just for consideration. We've talked about it in-house, and we have an opportunity here and there to hire some folks that they're top shelf folks that we've looked at. But theoretically, again, if we had 3 that were blocking the position, we wouldn't be able to bring them in. So what we're really asking for is 3 temporary full-time equivalents, temporary while they're in school. But again, that's something for the Levy Court to consider if they want to go that way. I'm not sure how the finance department would fund that. Maybe there's a way to do it, because we're not really asking to increase our boots on the ground. We're asking to fill our capacity while we have folks in school, kind of like the state police and the academy. So.
Thank you.
But we are pleased with the recruiting efforts and the training program that the Levy Court and the county administrator, helped us move forward. And I think that that is the way to go. It's worked for Newcastle County. It was clear, of course, it's a more urban area, so they have more paramedics. But it was very clear some time back that Delaware Tech's their only source of paramedics. They're the only school that trains paramedics in the state of Delaware, and it wasn't going to meet the demands. So we're really following in the footsteps of kind of sort of with what Newcastle County has done, is using folks, and what we actually did in the past when we paid students to go to Delaware Tech. And that's still an option too. I mean, we could still, use Delaware Tech, but we like the good fellowship because it's a year-long school, and really they have an articulation agreement with Westchester University. So when they graduate, they're just a few credits short, maybe 1 or 3 or 4 credits short of an associate's degree. So they're getting the content and the quality, and it's a nationally recognized school. So and they can street a person in a year, which is really good for us. So
Any questions for Colin? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, John, I thought about you Sunday.
Did you?
Yeah, I got my booster shot and you didn't give it to me.
You should have called. I would have given it.
Reassessment is Miss Susan Durham. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All righty. Well, the good old reassessment project, as you know, we obviously have started it, and we had our 4 public discussions in October 12th at the Milford Senior Center, and then in the evening at Harrington, and October 14th here at Levy Court and in Cheswold. And I thought for the most part that the discussions were good. It started out really well. In Milford, they were spot on with their questions and stuff, and so it carried out really well. The attendance was anywhere from 15 to, I think there was 20-some people here, so there wasn't a whole lot of attendance, but the word got out. It's already hit Facebook, the discussions and everything, so there's been a lot of interest, and I think probably we'll need to hit that target again with questions, maybe at another time, whether it be, through the internet or something, but there's a lot of questions being posted out there about the end factor after people come on their property, or the ones, they're already starting the discussions about what if they're not allowed on my property, do I have to let them on my property and stuff like that. I don't know if we want to put up a frequently asked question thing on the website, because these same questions that came up at all 4 meetings, I thought would be a good idea.
Real good idea.
So that's one of the things that I actually meet with Ryan tomorrow. I was going to suggest to him. And then they've started their field work. They did their training the last couple of weeks, and they did start their field work. They started in Clayton. They're still in Clayton. I haven't heard anything bad, so far so good. I don't ask. I just feel like if you don't hear anything, that's a good sign. Don't ask. So there's been no calls to the assessment office or anything so far.
That's good.
So far, I don't really know the quantity of what they've hit yet, but I just know they are out there. And so this field work will be going on for quite a while. So really now the project just is going to move forward with Tyler just, handling it for the next few months with the field work, and then the county will be quite involved again after the field work is gathered. So, and then you guys already went forward with the, going forward with the IAS World assessment software, so that's going to be integrated into this project also. I'll be bringing a contract forward for that. Just got it today, so I have to run it past Mike and Craig. So I'm not sure exactly when, but that'll be coming forward with everything targeted to be finished in February of 2024.
Good questions for Susan.
That's in time for tax billings to go out in September of 24.
Yes, it's called tax year 24, and that's when, and that was our agreement in the settlement and everything. So.
Anybody else? Thank you, Ms. Durham.
Ms. Durham.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. We have anybody here for sewer?
No, I don't see Ms. Galt here, but I can just reiterate that they're looking between now and the end of the year to put out an RFQ, request for qualifications for engineering services, to assist with the development of the plan. And she did indicate in her communication that they've got an extension on planning grant money from the Department of Natural Resources through December, so latter part of December anyway. So we need to get this moving.
For compensation?
Yeah.
Mr. Quayla?
Thank you, Commissioners. I know you saved the
Best for last.
Yes, best for last.
Before you go on vacation or going
Yes,
on a
before
trip,
going
right?
vacation, yes. So, Commissioners probably remember July of 2019, we issued RFP for the classification, compensation, and benefit study. The consultant was selected, which was MAG, Management Advisory Group International, and in the fall they sent electronic position description questionnaires to everyone, and that ultimately resulted in their report dated March 13th, 2020. And why is that important? Because about 4 days later, everything shut down due to the pandemic. So several months later, it was November, you finally got to hear a presentation from the consultant on the report. And then fortunately, when you were working on the budget for the current fiscal year, you folded the necessary funds into your budget. And as soon as you adopt that budget, we started work on implementation of the pay study. And what that involved was a complete redo of the county's pay grades and our steps. As you recall, the steps widened, the grades were all renumbered, we had more, and then we had to, the consultant had put all of the county positions in their new grades. And then that had to be entered into the payroll system, and we certainly appreciate Susan Durham, the finance director, and her staff's effort to help us get that done, so that on July 1st, all the employees did receive their adjusted pay increases as a result, and their new steps and grades as a result of the pay study. After that was done, the consultant still had to draft up the new position descriptions. That was part of his contract. So that resulted in about 285 new, rewritten, I'm not sure how you want to describe it, position descriptions. After we received those, the personnel office staff reviewed them, sent them out to the department heads, and you may recall on October 19th, you approved about, I think it was 3 departments and most of the row offices' job descriptions. And we have the next batch planned to come to you on December the 7th. Since we have about half of those approved by Levy Court now, we have started the process of sending the new job descriptions to all of the employees. And what we ask is that they acknowledge receipt, basically read their new job descriptions, what you want them to do. And we'll be doing that for the rest of the group, hopefully after Levy Court approves that in December. That process will be followed by the final part of the contract, which included some free software provided by the consultant that will help us classify positions going forward under the current pay plan. So we hope to get that done in January, February maybe, and included in that price was their some training of staff on that. And then finally, they'll get the last amount of money we owe them. And this project will be done. We'll be ready to start the next one. So keep your fingers crossed for FY23.
Any questions for Mr. Quayla? Seeing none? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioners. We really appreciate your support of the pay study, and we recognize that COVID obviously required it to be postponed when it would have normally been implemented in FY21. So, thank you.
Thanks, Alan.
Safe travels, Alan.
Thank you.
Any public comments on these 3 items? Any public comments on these 3 items? Anybody online, Mark?
I see no hands raised on WebEx.
Back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you. We'll adjourn the committee meetings and go back to our special business meeting. The first item is under Mr. Maston. You have an introduction.
Okay, introduction of a resolution approving in accordance with Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended and in accordance with Section 660304 11A of the Wisconsin statutes, the issuance of bonds to finance projects for Bay Health Medical Center Incorporated for public hearing on Tuesday, November 9th, 2021 at 7 p.m.
Thank you for the introduction. Any public comments? Any public comments? Any commissioner comments? Commissioner Angel.
On behalf of the Angel family, I just wanted to say thank you for the spray of flowers that you all sent for my father. For those who contacted me or came by and spent time with us or called, it meant a lot. I will honestly say that of all the funerals of my almost 69 years of life, I've gone to even celebrations. This was probably the best celebration one I've ever seen or heard when I'm getting back from the people that were there. And I just wanted to thank you all. It meant a lot. So thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? Mr. Patterbosh.
I don't see informational items, so if I can go under commissioner comments. I just want to let you know that the American Rescue Plan Act RFP that we issued closed on Monday,
Okay.
The 1st, and we received 7 submissions. And so we'll be reviewing those and hope to get through them in November and bring forward a recommendation to you before the end of the year.
Great, great, thank you.
Mr. Prepper?
Yes.
I got one more, please. Today I was on a virtual meeting for membership after I was taking care of some business for the funeral parlor, but I got on with membership for NACO, and at the very end there I was able to get on, and I asked them about looking at helping the smaller counties or counties that we don't want to reinvent the wheel with the ARPA funds, and I brought back what I had mentioned in Washington, D.C. about using the taxes, for the nonprofits and businesses and things like that. And they are going to start doing something, but they haven't started yet. But I asked them to start cataloging it so that we can there's a process in place. We don't reinvent the wheel. We can go and pick and choose. And they all like that idea, so they're going to move forth on that. So hopefully that will be coming forth from NACO. Good, thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments? Seeing none? All in favor of adjournment? Raise your hand.
Hall?
Mr. Hall, do you hear? Put your hand up. We are adjourned.
Now?
Yes, sir. At your service.
I thought there was a second pen here, my friend, but you're going to have to wait if you want to sign it, but you missed a couple of these.
Actually, it's more than a couple.
Hey, it is what it is. It's not like we asked for it.
I think.